Hello and welcome to the Wire Talks. I'm Sidharth Bhatia. In the late 1970s, Saeed Akhtar Mirza's first feature film, Arvind Desai Ki Ajeeb Dastan, hit the screen. This was followed soon by Albert Pinto Ko Gussa Kyun Aata Hai. The films had not just interesting long names that instantly became popular, but showed a slice of everyday life in Bombay city of the time. Other films followed with similar long titles. Mirza had arrived as a filmmaker, but his final feature was named just Naseem, and it was released exactly 30 years ago. It came out soon after the demolition of Babri Masjid and the brutal killings in Bombay, and had a one word title, as I said, Nasim, but also a very evocative story. The film was set in the months before the demolition, and it was about an aging Muslim poet played by Kaifi Azmi and his family's growing despair at the violence all over the country in the aftermath of BJP leader L.K. Advani's Rath Yatra. The film opened with a title card that just said that one act of demolition wrote the epitaph of an age that has passed, perhaps never to return. It was Mirza's cry from the heart about an India he saw slipping away. And since then, Mirza has not made a feature film, but he is busier than ever making documentaries, writing books, and he is also now the chairman of the K.R. Narayanan National Institute of Visual Arts and Sciences in Kochi. But most of all, Mirza, whom I have known, likes to call himself an internationalist. Naseem and its message of a changing India seem very prescient today. I invited him to join the Wire Talks to discuss not just the film, but also how he views contemporary India. Saeed Akhtar Mirza, welcome to the Wire Talks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Siddharth, sir. Thank you.
Naseem was made immediately after the demolition of the Babri Masjid and the violence in Bombay. What was in your mind when you decided to make it? Did you react to the events of that time emotionally?
I did, Siddharth. It was to me, it was like a final act. It was the final nail on a coffin on the idea of a nation that I saw slowly over much before the Babri Masjid issue. I'd seen signs about the collapse that's occurring, the slow growth of hate and anger. And in that, when the actual act occurred in 1992 of the Babri Masjid, I just thought that, my God, there ends the dream. You could see it happening in the late 70s and 80s, this riots and ethnic riots and linguistic riots. But finally, when it boils down to find towards communal riots, you saw a kind of writing on the wall. And then the Babri Masjid epitomized the final collapse, of an idea of India, of a sovereign, secular, democratic republic, equal for all, equality and justice. You saw it collapse in front of your eyes. It set me thinking, it set me in despair. I was also very angry, I think. That's why I waited for a little time to be able to write that script, and I wanted to make a very quiet film, not in anger, not in anger, but to be able to chronicle our times, to be able to chronicle as to where my country was heading. And that's what I did. I made the film, and then uske baad I started doing documentaries and wrote books and travelogues, and just to perhaps regain confidence in this nation that I saw, that I loved, actually. And yeah, that's it. That's been my journey. That's been my journey.
You know,
Uh,
I,
I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead. You were ending.
Not that it be an oracle that I saw it coming, but these things were these events that were happening from the you know 70s and 80s. You could see it happen, and nothing was being done. And it was considered fringe elements or something. It was all considered fringe elements, and you realize that the so-called fringe element is no longer fringe. It has the support of very large numbers of people. And how's it being called fringe? And therefore, you're seeing, in my sense, a degradation of the idea of of our country as in our constitution. And there it was. And after the demolition, a party of almost nothing became a party of plenty. And the first lot, immediately after the demolition, the next election, they were from 2 to 82. And then, of course, you see the rise and the support that it got. And what worried me most was the support that it got, not from the poor and the disenfranchised, but fundamentally from the middle class and upper middle class. And that was the so called educated. That disturbed me. Yeah, it worried me.
Did you say that many of us remember the 70s and 80s? Yes, there were episodes of violence and communalism that were rising, but still, I think the idea of India held, the idea of secularism held. Around the late 80s, did you see in your, because you say in the educated upper middle class and the middle class, did you see changes in your immediate environment, in your
Absolutely, absolutely. The other thing, the other important to note is the response to if you remember the 1984 riots in Delhi and across India, of course, after the assassination of Indira Gandhi and the fury with which the Sikh community was attacked, that set me thinking. Look at the anger that was there. It wasn't just minorities; it was the Sikh community, and I said, my God, this anger has been unleashed and supported. And people say, was it supported really by political parties? I think it's supported by large numbers of people simultaneously. These are worrisome. These are all incredibly worrisome signs to me. And yeah, and of course, uske baad, we've reached the stage today where there's no such thing like truth. Or we live in a post-truth world where it's accepted. It doesn't have to be substantiated. It doesn't have to be morally right. There's no such thing as being morally right. It just has to be accepted. Like, look, this is the way things are, and this is the way things are going to be. And there's no such thing like right or wrong. That is very critical.
your Naseem begins with this uh, background of the demolition of the Babri Masjid. And you say, as I read out a little while earlier, that this is the end of uh, an era that is past, perhaps never to return. Uh, was that a kind of a outburst, or was that you were sure that this was the end?
And then at that time, I was absolutely sure. I was absolutely sure that this hate is going to build up and it's going to get more and more takers. And the hate that is being built up is not going to be, it was like, and then it was built up over an idea back through an interpretation of history. An interpretation of history led by historians of questionable credentials, but they were there, and a history was recreated. And in that, it almost sounded like now there's a time and post 2014, with the coming of this particular regime, it is openly payback time to right all the wrongs, sins of the past, with no remorse, no shame, no guilt, I suppose. And that's why I said it doesn't matter. And that's the frightening part of it. That's the frightening part of it. At least I hope it's not like a rant, because I belong to a class that is privileged, and I have recourse to centers of power and influence which can perhaps protect me. But the thing is, right now my name is not Saeed Mirza and Sidharth Bhatia speaking about my country. I wish my name wasn't Saeed Mirza. It happens to be Saeed Mirza. But right now, to me, it's critically important to God, it was poetry. That was over. That's over. And hate has taken, has come to the fore, center stage. Fact.
It's the in the movie. I saw the movie. In the movie, the young girl and her relationship with the poet, with each other, the grandfather, is very interesting. Now that you have the sons in the house who are angry at when they watch television and they say that they are telling us to get out of this country, and the young girl, schoolgirl, is the innocent person asking these questions, and the grandfather, strangely, interestingly enough, I felt had some hope, offers some hope, but he then, I'm not giving away spoilers, but he dies. So is that I know this is, one should not overinterpret, but was that the last gasp of a time, because he dies just before the masjid is brought down?
Absolutely.
Is this some
It's like a metaphor. And Kaifi Azmi himself, he's no longer a grandfather. His also his name is Kaifi Azmi, who also happens to be a great poet.
correct?
You know, and I to me, it's the end of poetry, and that's in 1995, 96, and I saw it happening. And to me, it's despair, frustration, but also the fact that you can see at times immense pushback by young people, which gives you hope. It gives you hope, but the only thing that I have uh, in terms of a positive note is for how long can hate last? For how long? Uh, and therefore, there is an expiry date. I would imagine an expiry date to hate, and then something else might take shape, take form. But in the meanwhile, we'll have to live with it. And unfortunately, people are going to die. People are going to die in the process. And the other unfortunate part of it is they will have to be the poor and the disenfranchised, who have no recourse to law or justice or the sense of equality, and they're going to die. And that's the truth. And that's the truth we have to live with now. It's not a very happy feeling. And I'm quite honestly, I feel so helpless that I can't do a thing. And you know what's happening? A chronicle of slaughter and beast. So that is incredible that is based on an idea of a history fundamentally flawed. Open to any kind of, it's open to any, if it, to any, if it, you scrutinize that history, it's open to, it's so full of flaws and questionable conclusions. Can I give you an example?
Yeah,
I mean, either the thing very simple. The Muslims were bastards, terrible rulers, rapacious, and they were looters and killers and whatever else they did. And Hindus are not fundamental. It's a binary. Now let's take the idea of history before the so-called coming of Islam, as invaders. Islam came to India much before Gauri. It came through trade and things of all kinds of things were happening, and people were being employed by various Hindu kings, etc. But tell me about the kingdom before the coming of Islam, the invaders. There are hundreds of kingdoms, and they change from one to another. Now, how did that change happen? Over a cup of tea and biscuits? Through the shedding of blood. It's a simple thing. Look at the whole legend of Ashoka slaughtering 99 of his first cousins to gain power. That's a, Look at the legend of Parshuram slaughtering Kshatriyas. I mean, these are all. Look at now, what happened. There's the little details, and the point is, if one makes a case, any any feudal system, judging by our standards, is unjust. It doesn't matter who. Any feudal system is unjust because it can never deliver. It can never be democratic. as a system. It cannot be. You require other laws to take shape, and then a certain kind of democracy occurs. Now, if that is the case, then let's see all kingdoms and simultaneously. I mean, this, I sometimes wonder, there's a book. Are you aware of the financiers of the Delhi Sultanates? Do you know who the financiers were? Who financed those kingdoms? Does anybody know about them? They were Bhutani, they were Hindus, they were merchants, financiers. And to me, if one sees it honestly, and I'm saying across the board, earlier also and later also, this Hindu Muslim binary seems so incredibly stupid. You take the example of, son, of there's a man called Malik Ambar. Malik Ambar was the Wazir of the Bijapur Empire, and he was the king. And his command,
Yeah, he was in Ethiopia.
Ethiopian slave and a Muslim. And his commander was a man called Maroji Bhosle. Now, he and Maroji Bhosle were fighting the armies of Jahangir. The Jahangir is another Muslim king. And who is Jahangir's commander? Man Singh, a Hindu. So two Muslim guys fighting with and one Muslim king commander was a Hindu, the other guy is also a Hindu. They're fighting each other. Now the point is, he's a commander. Maruji Bhosle is a commander in Malik Ambar's army. A lot of Marathas were commanders. Telugu people were Hindu Telugu people were commanders. You want to hear another story? Maruji Bhosle, he was a commander. And he had a problem because he wasn't having any male children. So he goes to a dargah of a Sufi Pir called Shah Sharif. He prays for male heirs. And when the heirs do occur, they happen after 2 or 3 years. He names one son Shahji and the other Sharifji, named after the same Sufi saint. Shahji is the father of Shivaji. Now get your history clear. Did you know that?
No, so I mean, we've read a lot of this. Many people may have read, but do you think true history, is playing a part here at all?
No, use it. The use of it.
But is it pure hate, isn't it?
The pure hate comes from. Otherwise, how can you hate? They have to have done something now. They have to have done something. So let's go into history. And we come use history as the backdrop for now. And you've got to paint them in a manner that they cannot be redeemed in any shape or form. There's no redemption. Well, that's it. Now, God bless these historians. And they're celebrated. Lovely people. There's one fellow who looks incredibly professorial, a fellow called something Sampat, another lady called something Meenakshi Jain. Lovely people. There's nothing to redeem.
You mentioned a little while ago that, I mean, in passing, you mentioned, but I want to develop that point. You mentioned that you find the younger Indians, what they say, quite encouraging. Uh, what would you say? Are young Indians now beginning to ask questions?
I think they are, but a young Indians of a certain kind. Young Indians of a certain kind, yes, they are asking questions, but there's also a lumpenization that's also occurring. A lumpenization of minds, of the middle class minds. And that's an incredibly dangerous thing. Now, I I don't know. I sometimes wonder that there's, you remember the protests for the famous Shaheen Bagh protests that were occurring all over the country.
Yeah.
Look at because the young people who joined up, and that's an indicator. Look at the farmers' protests that were also happening at that time. That's also an indicator of things happening. So there were and are forces that are aligning in a certain kind of way, and I think it gives you hope. But to realize that somewhere down the line, there is a fear inside me that every single year, Siddharth, every single year, approximately 10 to 15 million young people are passing out from the 10th, 12th, and graduating every year from schools. And now that means it's about three-quarters of the population of Australia every year passing out. And they all have dreams for jobs. They all have aspirations. They all want to be partake in the good life which they've seen on television. They've seen the wedding of Ambani and the Adanis, and they've seen the fantastic cars and fashion shows on television. They've seen the good life, and they do not. And they probably want a part of it. Why shouldn't they? But no, they're not going to get it. That's a fact. It's truth. Now, where do they go? Where does this energy go, Siddharth, in our country? It's going to be galvanized. It's going to be channeled. And who is going to channel that? And why and how is my clear. Every single year, Siddharth, every single year. 10 million young people every year. Where is it going to go? And they are going to ask questions. At one level, hopefully they ask the right questions and they get the right answers. But if they ask the right questions and get the wrong answers, like for instance, the reason why this is happening is because of the other can be held to pay. Just think it over, Siddharth. Just think it over. ये हमारे अब पूरी दुनिया में शायद ऐसे ही हो रहा है. Where are young people going to go in terms of jobs and a future? And who is going to manage that future? Or tell them, boss, this is the way it is actually. It's frightening. I don't have an answer, but I have a question. That's the only thing I don't have an answer to this. मगर सच्चाई ये है. There is a, no, I worry because this is going to be used. But any political party knows that it can't deliver. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Look what they've done with this. Look what they've done with this idea called the.
But your answer was complete in itself when you said, well, they have aspirations. Where will they go? What questions? I think the answer complete. So, which leads me to the next thing, and that is that uh, do you think, leaving politics aside for the moment, oh, see, look at me. Let's say I'm a citizen, an ordinary citizen. I'm young. I'm impressionable in many ways. And I'm not just getting what the message of the political party is. That's just one way of reaching me.
Right.
There is also a lot of ways of reaching me which come from, let's say, social media or
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
and come from culture. Now, culture reminds me that you belong to an industry which, for whatever it's worth, had a particular value system in its operations and had a particular value system in its content. Now, don't you think that your film industry today, the film industry, has become complicit in sending out these messages of hatred?
I think by and large it's not true, but there are sections of it that has capitulated, which is a fact. And it's not just here. Most of Hollywood cinema capitulated to building up the case for America and its wars and their patriotism. The problem is here. The problem is it's not just India, but the thing is, this is being done very deliberately, perpetuating the hate and the othering which is happening over here. But in other countries, I think that they played the game too. They've played the game of patriotism and the building up a kind of patriotism with there for my country, right or wrong, you know, and the idea of liberty and freedom and this, it's across the world, Siddharth. That's why, that's why the use of popular entertainment uh, for these purposes is odd. I don't know. Of course, it's being used in India. Of course, it's being used, and people are participating to it very, very directly and deliberately. They know. They know exactly what they're doing. And in a strange way, I believe they think they're doing no wrong because This is the time for retribution and payback time for people who happen to be a community that happen to be ruling this country, not realizing that the rulers were somewhere else and the people were somewhere else, but attitude towards the idea of the Muslim. It's sad. It's sad, and this is, I don't know. Sometimes I have, sometimes I have, and this strange. Look at the support the mainstream media and the OTT platform, the right wing OTT, gave to the slaughter and genocide in Gaza. Look at the look at the. I couldn't believe it. I think India was the only country from the south, only country that had this kind of response towards what's happening in Gaza. Shocking. And the affinity with the apartheid regime in Israel, affinity with it. And why? Primarily because, again, the binary, very simple, the pounding the Muslims, killing Muslims. But these are truths. It's a binary. And there's a problem with it, There's a problem with this binary.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct on all counts, or including the way the Indian mainstream media is, and of course the what Hollywood has done, and Hollywood has done for a long time.
Oh, yeah,
But
a lot.
uh, at the same time, what I find as a viewer, as an observer, very shocking is the fact that uh, I really find it shocking. For example, that there are films being made, which there are also very good films being made, but there are films being made which distort medieval history completely, distort distort recent history, are completely straightforward propaganda for the ruling regime.
True.
Uh, this kind of thing in India never happened in the film industry. How do you, as a elder statesman of Indian cinema, as it were, I'm bestowing this title on you. How do you, somebody who has held to a particular standard, how do you feel about it? I know you've stopped making movies, but how do you feel about it?
I feel that this, but the question that you're asking, I think there are a lot of young filmmakers who are asking the same question right now. I mean, Sudhir Mishra, Anurag Kashyap, Anubhav Sinha, they were asking the questions, what is happening? They're doing it. A lot of young filmmakers, and right questions are being posed. And in the South, of course, it's very clear. But there are filmmakers here who carved out. And for them, I suppose it's also maybe it's a firm belief. Maybe it's an act of faith. I believe that it's an act of faith also with them. And they think that they absolute and this perception that they had, that's what they had. That's what they believe. I, you again, without, it's sad. It's, you take a film like, you take a film like, I didn't know. There was a film called, from what I gather, a film called Chava. It was an incredibly successful film on, uh, on the life of Shambhaji Maharaj, who is Shivaji's son, and the gruesome way that he was humiliated and slaughtered by Aurangzeb, from what I gather. Aurangzeb beheaded his brother, Zara Shikoh, for treason. His sons, who happened to be friends of Shambhaji Maharaj, Akbar Khan, the Akbar, one of his sons, friend, had him killed. Now the point I'm getting at, here's a story which is also true. Did you know that Shivaji had his son also imprisoned because he found him to be hot-headed and wild? Did you know that? Did you also know that Mr. V.D. Savarkar wrote a note about Mr. Shambhaji being a bad ruler because he killed so many Brahmins and had them crushed by elephants? Did you know that? This is all history. The problem is here, but it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong now. These things do not matter. What matters is another idea of India. That is the issue. And I think fundamentally it's an issue which is, I think, born out of fear of a nation losing, a people losing a whole grip, their grip on power, which they had for centuries and for millennia. The RSS fundamentally and the Hindu Mahasabha would match up fundamentally upper caste movements, very clearly upper caste movements. And they were there because there was the Bhakti and Sufi traditions were savage in their critique and in their criticism about rituals and power and the system. And they made fun. Imagine what these guys must have gone through because for after millennia of unquestionable power, impunity, you're being questioned, you're being ridiculed, you're being made fun of. Both the cleric and the priest, you're being made fun of. Now, what do you want in return for that? Then let's get back to, let's get back our power. And with the growth of subaltern languages, of Marathi, Gujarati, Telugu, as opposed to Sanskrit or Persian, there's a revolt. There's a revolt. There's a whole process of revolt. Now, but how do you frame this argument? How do you frame the argument? You frame it in a manner which doesn't point to yourself. You frame it in a manner as a larger, a more noble idea of India. Pitrabhumi, Matrabhumi, etc. These are words that I use right now to identify in one sense. So the inside and the outside is first framed over there, and then simultaneously to retain to retain a power structure that was being shaken by the Constitution of India and by the rise of subaltern languages and subaltern people. I believe. I believe that. It's a
Where where do you see with all this background and going back to what you said in the film, because we began with the film, an epoch has gone, an era has gone, a period is gone, an age is gone where there was some say decencies and some secularism and some noble idea of India, even if it was not on a daily basis fulfilled. There was at least that vision. Where do you see us heading in the next few years, few decades? Where do you see India going?
oh, we're going the way Israel is going. We're going the way, we are chest thumping a superior people, incredibly superior people, better than the best, better in the best in the world. That's who we claim to be. We are chosen by God as the Israelis, I suppose, and a superior people regaining their lost glory, regaining their lost glory. And unfortunately, I feel that it cannot be backed up by actual facts on the ground. The facts on the ground are still the fact that you have to feed 800 million people rations every single day. That's a fact. The largest number of stunted children in the world happens to be in India. Your level of poverty has gone up. I don't know how many photos. Some the statistician would probably give us the figures over there. And on education, our position across the world. Right? The thing is, all that is circumvented. All that is circumvented for the so-called larger idea. And the other thing that I must say is that they tried that in Pakistan, I think, also. And when you have this entire religious regime of Ziaul Haq and the return of fanaticism and the Wahhabi faith over there, it was it was sad seeing it there. and you see it over here, and you wonder to yourself, okay, where are we heading? I don't know. We're not going forward. I know we're going backwards. That I know. How far backwards, I don't know, until we stop because some sense will prevail somewhere. But what I do know is you can't run a country on hate for such a long time.
Well, actually, Saeed, that's I think that's a kind of statement of that's a kind of statement of hope. I think, even if it's not, a plan or whatever, but you're right. You can't run a country on hate. You got to run a country on values, on achievements, on science, on so many other things. You got to feed those people.
But very clear, absolutely.
So I see a glimmer there. I see a glimmer there. After all, you are an I can say this as a friend. You're an old lefty, and lefties never.
Very, it's on my, I wear it on my sleeve it's a badge of honor. What does the leftist mean, son? So what?
No, my point is, like, never lose hope. They never lose hope at the way.
No, hold on. I'll tell you why. No, you people believe that leftism started with Karl Marx. It started with Gautam Buddha, my friend. Get the idea right. It started with Gautam Buddha, the first original, the first guy. So the first fellow who laid on ideas of of compassion, solidarity, was a man called Gautam Buddha. At least I know there's another man, of course, also called Zarathustra. He was also there. Read the laws of Hammurabi. Look at those laws of Hammurabi of equality and justice. It's not new, son. It's not new. It's old. These guys come and go, but then Guru Nanak Ji, I mean, for God's sake, Bulle Shah, Baba Farid, Sant Tukaram, Namdev, Kabir. Come on, who are these people, yeah? They're all lefties. They're all lefties. Get the idea right about lefties, yeah? They're not. The left is a much larger idea.
Exactly,
Yeah. And
exactly.
this tuchapan of hate is so incredibly ghettoized, a tunneled mind behind it. Tunneled mind behind it. That's what I can say. Ghettoized, tunneled mind, whether it's in Pakistan or India, bloody Donald Trump. I mean, sad. It's so sad. Rise up because you're a human being, for God's sake. And human beings are equal. Beyond color, gender, caste, creed, religion, they're equal. Once we understand that, we'll make the world a better place. It's as simple as that. As simple as that.
So I really, I mean, I'm really happy that after all that you talked about India, and with a note of frus- despair, frustration, etc., you still retain that
Of course,
passion, passion and hope for the future.
Guru Nanak can't be wrong. Kabir can't be wrong. Bulle Shah can't be wrong. Come on, that's the future.
Yes, good. So on that note, Saeed, I think, personally, I think I've had, and I'm sure the listeners will also say that this was a extremely satisfying chat. Uh, I just want to express one hope: you should make a new film now on all this.
Too old. No, it requires a lot of energy, physical energy, and I don't have it. I have the mental energy. I don't have the physical.
So that, and this is really disappointing that you are feeling too old to make a film, but Saeed Mirza, who has given us some great films in the past. Uh, and I forgot to mention something which he also was very much the father of, Nukkad, that fantastic show on Doordarshan, which Saeed and his brother made.
And
Uh,
Tantra.
and Kundan Shah, of course. How can we forget the great Kundan Shah? Jane Bhi Do Yaro. So this was Saeed Mirza as our guest on the Wire Talks today. And I've known Saeed for a very long time. I know that this was a glimpse of the passion he brings to any discussion, any venture. Uh, he Thank you, Saeed, once again from me and the
You're
listeners.
welcome.
And we'll be back again soon with another episode of the Wire Talks. Till then, from me, Sidharth Bhatia, and the rest of the Wire Talks team, goodbye.